Hi everyone, welcome to Risa Does Makeup. Today I'm going to be doing a review and some swatches of the Too Faced Chocolate Gold palette. I'm also going to be showing you a tutorial of this eye look right here. And the reason why I wanted to include a short, I think pretty easy tutorial in this video is because I think that swatches alone don't always give you the full picture of how a palette's going to perform once you get it home. Because a lot of times, I know for myself, I'll watch these videos, I'll look at swatches online and they'll seem, the shadows will seem pretty pigmented, but then when I try to apply them to my eye, that richness of color doesn't really translate to a real life application. So that's why I thought it would be a good idea to include a relatively easy, I think, tutorial after I go through the swatches with you. So this palette is obviously part of the Too Faced Chocolate Bar collection. There's the original chocolate bar, which is one of my personal favorites, the semi-sweet. They have the peach palette. So it's the same size packaging. It's the same feel. It's set up in the typical bar, Too Faced bar palette way. With 16 shades, 4 of which are matte. Everything else is shimmer. I do like that they put this bigger pan of your base color or your highlight color, because a lot of people use shades like this to cover their entire lid, maybe to set their concealer or use it as a starting point for any eyeshadow look. So it's nice that they give you a good amount of that color. The rest, as I said, are all shimmers, and I'm gonna start swatching them for you, starting with the top row. So here we have Moneybags, Chocolate Gold, and Rich Girl. And then we have Cocoa Truffle and Decadent. And next up we have Love and Cocoa, Old Money, and New Money. And then we have Famous, Classy and Sassy, and So Bougie. And then for the final row, we have Holla for a Dollar. Then in the middle is Gold Dipped. And on the end, the purple is Livin' Lavish. And then the last 2 shades are Drippin' Diamonds and Rollin' in the Dough. Now I wanted to specifically call out these 3 shades: Rich Girl, Famous, and Drippin' Diamonds. After playing around with this palette for a couple days, these 3 are the only ones, in my opinion, that are truly richly pigmented, that you don't necessarily have to use water or dampen your brush in some way to get that full effect, that full pigment that you're seeing here. Now the rest of the shades didn't really impress me that much, unfortunately, but let's move on now to the tutorial so you can see the shadows, some of the shadows in action, and then at the very end, after the tutorial is concluded, I will share with you my final thoughts. I'm going to give it a grade and let you know whether or not it's worth the $49 price tag. So let's get to the tutorial. So I'm gonna start by doing the first thing that I always do, and that's taking a little bit of Shape Tape, or any concealer really, on a synthetic brush and carving out my eyebrow. Or defining the eyebrow. So once that's done, I take a flat shader brush. This is a Sigma E55. And I'm going into the shade Rollin' in the Dough. And I'm basically just setting that underbrow highlight. And then I like to take it a little bit onto my crease. So even though I've already powdered there, I still like to take it all the way in, all the way out, and then a little bit into my crease. Next, I'm using a Sigma E25 blending brush, and I'm going into the shade So Bougie. And I'm placing that right in my crease. And as you can see, my eyes are pretty hooded, so I like to put my chin up, raise my brows, and that way I can see where my crease is, and then I go a little bit higher. And I go from the outer corner to the inner corner. And I'm just making little circles and blending it in. Next, Next up, I'm reaching for this smaller synthetic concealer brush. I believe this is a MAC 213. So you want to dampen the brush. And I'm going into the shade Famous, packing it on the brush, and then placing it on the inner portion of my lid. Now, I have demonstrated in other videos doing the lid shade first, especially if you have hooded eyes, so you can know better like how far up to go. But in playing around with this palette, because that crease shade is so light, or that transition shade is so light, you can really do it either way. I can still see by raising my brows how far up, where that fold is, and how far to go. So as you can see, I'm leaving this part bare. Up next is a Sigma E47 and the shade Cocoa Truffle. And I'm focusing this right on the outer corner and then moving it in to my crease. So the first shade, the So Bougie, went a little bit higher. This one's going right in the crease. So if I looked straight into the mirror, or right now the camera lens, and pushed in, that is where I want this color to go. Not up here, not down here, right there. Now I do find these colors, these mattes, all these shades really, not to be the most pigmented. I was really surprised. I thought that they would be really rich and pigmented, but look how many times I'm having to go in to get a deep enough color. This is really not, if I wasn't using this palette and trying to demonstrate to you, I'd probably go in with a darker brown or a more richly pigmented brown, like one from Anastasia Beverly Hills, or even MAC has some nice rich browns. So I just keep going and going, and it's taken me a while because I really want to build up this color. And if you happen to get some on the lid and now you're covering that gold color, don't worry about it, just go back in and add some more. And now I'm just kind of blending out again with that original brush. Now using any small pencil brush, this is just an inexpensive one from Essence. I believe I purchased it at CVS. And I'm going into the shade Decadent. Now this is another disappointing shade. I really feel like if you're gonna put a black in a palette, make it a rich black. Make it a pigmented black. But with this, as you're gonna see in a second, it's like barely a dark gray. And I'm just kind of focusing that on the outer corner. And I'm going in again. And kind of drawing it along my lower lash line, just the outer third of the lower lash line, and then really sticking it right in that outer corner. Again, don't worry if it gets too low. We're gonna clean it up with a wipe. Putting it right in the crease, but not any higher. So I'm really hoping you can tell that it's not very black. It's like a dark, dark gray. And that's fine for some people. You know, you might have a different opinion, and you might like that the black is not so saturated, because a lot of times those can be more difficult to work with. So there are pros and cons to every palette, and everybody's different in what they like in a palette. So now I am gonna take a makeup wipe, and because my eyes are more downturned as well, they turn down on the ends, I'm gonna take this wipe and angle it up towards my brow, because I want my eyes to look more uplifted versus downturned. So doing this really lifts up the eye and then gives me a guide to where I want to put my eyeliner. So while I wait for the dampness of the wipe to dry, you want to do that because if you try to go and apply eyeliner while this is still damp from using the wipe, it's going to smear. So I like to wait a couple seconds, and I'm going to move to doing my tear duct area. Once again, I'm spraying the brush. This is a little bit of a firmer pencil brush. I believe this one is from Morphe. So now for my tear duct, I'm using the shade Gold Dipped, and then just placing that right in there. I'm taking a little bit along, just a hair into the lower lash line. So now that there's no more dampness in this area, I'm gonna take my Tarteist liquid liner. This is the double-ended liquid liner. It has a pencil on one end, and then it has the liquid liner on the other. As many of you know who've been watching my channel for a while, I am horrible at wing liner on camera. So I'm gonna do the best I can on camera, and I might have to touch it up off camera because it's just not easy for me. See? just poke myself in the eye with the liquid liner. Okay, so I'm gonna finish off the wing off camera because I need to use both hands. I need to kind of pull a little bit. When you have a hooded eye, downturned eye, you don't want to tug too harshly, but you want to pull just a little bit so you can get in that area. But I need to drop this so I can have one hand to hold and one hand to do my wing. So I'll be right back. I am going to touch up any concealer that I might have removed from that area when I use the wipe. So I'm going back in with Shape Tape, or as I said in the beginning, you can use any concealer you choose. And I'm also kind of sharpening up that wing. Now I know you might be wondering like, why such an upturned wing? But I do it because my eyes are downturned and I feel like it just gives a nice lift. Okay, so once that's done, we can do a little bit on the lower lash line. So for this, I'm using a pencil brush from MAC. This one I believe is a 217. And I'm going into the shade Live-In Lavish. And this I'm just placing right under the lower lash line. And then using that Essence pencil brush again, I'm going back into Decadent, which is that off black color in my opinion. And I'm running it right on the lower lash line, only on those outer corners. I'm really, really smoking it out. So don't worry if it gets kind of far down. I want it to be sort of smoky. And then I like to use my finger to soften it. So the eyes are done. Now I'm going to curl my lashes, apply some mascara, and then apply some lashes. These are from Worldwide Lashes, and this is the style Love. So the eyes are done. Now I have to say that if I were doing this look for myself and not for a tutorial, I would be going back in with a darker black, like a Anastasia Beverly Hills Noir or Makeup Geek's Corrupt, and I would darken the outer corner. I feel like it's just not dark enough for my taste or for where I would be wearing this type of makeup look. Obviously, for most people, this isn't a daytime look, but this palette isn't really a daytime palette. It's definitely, I mean, unless you are someone who likes to wear glitter during the day or shimmer during the day, and I personally have no problems with that. But I know the majority of you probably wouldn't wear this look or anything close to it, you know, to the office or during the day. So I feel like this palette is a special occasion palette for sure. It can be worn, you know, you could just use the basic shades in it, the ivory, the crease color that I use, that dark brown. You can stay away from the shimmers entirely and just do a look with those 4 shades, but 3, 4 shades. But I feel like there's better palettes for doing that. If you want just a matte neutral palette, there's plenty of other options. There's the Naked Basics from Urban Decay. There is, you know, just build your own palette from Anastasia Beverly Hills, because I really believe that those shadows are really, most of them that I've tried have been really richly pigmented. You can make your own, that's what I really recommend. If you want a nice basic palette, like for work or just every day, then I love build your own palettes personally. That said, you know, I've raved about the Too Faced chocolate bar. I also really love the original chocolate bar, and I also really love the peach palette. This one I have to say is sort of a miss for me. I really wish that, as I've said 1,000 times already, that the mattes were more pigmented, that even the shimmers were more pigmented. You can get color from them, but you have to use them wet. The rest of these are just, they just lack pigment on their own. And personally, I think that this palette could have been done much better, in a much better way. There is a way to make shimmers pigmented without having to wet your brush. I've demonstrated in many of my videos, like the Jouer Skinny Dip palette, Ultra Foils. Now that is the way to do a shimmer palette. I mean, maybe they were trying to make it just easier for more people to work with, maybe easier for beginners to work with, but I don't think that it is. I think that that's, you know, a lot of beginners don't really know how much water to add, and it could be too intense at first when they pack it on. I don't know. I just feel like this is, if I had to give it a rating, like an A, B, C, D rating, I would probably give it like a C+. It is super pretty to look at, I will give it that. And this Rollin' in the Dough, that one has a decent amount of pigment, but, and of course the Too Faced packaging is great in my opinion. And does this one even smell? This one doesn't really smell. All the other ones, unless I'm missing something, I don't know what this one smells like. But Some people don't like the scent, so that's good for those of you that don't. But I love a palette with a mirror, and I really can't say much more about it. I'm sticking with my C+. And everything else I have on my face, my foundation, blush, brows, lip color, highlight, everything, the exact products is gonna be listed in the description bar. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, please give the video a thumbs up and leave me a comment. I love to hear from my viewers. You can also subscribe if you are not already, and follow me on Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, and Twitter. Everything is the same. It's all Risa Does Makeup. And I'll see you guys in my next video.